Welcome back, everyone. This is the creative side of week 46. So this is when I give you a creative kickstart in the hopes that you can make your lessons meaningful and memorable and simple. And I have loads of tools to help you do that. I'm all about giving you a head start so that that creative piece isn't a hurdle for you, but almost like a ramp for you to enjoy teaching. And whether you're teaching at home or in a classroom setting, I think if you have just a few tools at your disposal, you can do amazing things. So let me show you what we have in store this week. Just remember, there's a lot in the archive that would work. For example, this would be a great week to talk about deliverance. The brother of Jared's story is a deliverance story. So it fits perfectly with that ball run that we made, where you put rubber bands on the back of a chair and the ball goes down and you talk about patterns of deliverance. Be great for this week. Another one that would work is that idea of patterns of revelation. So remember we talked about how we compared revelation to puzzle making and how there's a bit of a wrestle that happens when it comes to revelation. That happens with the brother of Jared trying to piece together how he's supposed to build the barges and what they're supposed to look like and whether they have windows or not. All of that would fit with this week's study. But let me show you what we have in store for just this week. The first thing is kind of obvious, but probably new. We're going to make a barge, you guys, because there's something about actually getting your hands on these stories that helps you remember them. When I brought this up, my kids remembered making it in 2020. They remembered what it was about and the story. So I know it works. So I'm going to show you how to make a barge, and not just any tight like a dish container, but one that can be submerged and the people survive. So I'll teach you how to make it. Basically, you just need any kind of deli container like this. You want one that can snap tight and be waterproof. And then you also need tape. It helps to have a really strong tape, like a duct tape that you can put on the top and the bottom because you're going to put some holes in it. And then on the inside, there's the printable piece that makes the Jaredites, and also a little, like what you would put ketchup in, a little tiny container. We find them at Walmart. They're usually by the paper plates, just like a 2-ounce little container. That will help you create the inside of the barge. And I'll show you what it's for in just a second. The second one. This one also involves a printable, but it's kind of optional. It depends on how much time you have on your hands. But we're going to make glowing stones. Of all the object lessons that I can remember teaching my kids the Book of Mormon in 2020, this is the one that came to mind first. It was something that inspired me. The moment I had the idea and started to make it, I could tell it was something that was going to click for my kids, and they loved it. In fact, when I brought it back, Violet said it was her favorite of all time. So you're going to make essentially candy stones, and not just stones, you guys, but stones that can glow. And that's the idea behind this object lesson. It also has a printable piece this year that didn't exist before. So I'm making you this little box so that if you're teaching in a classroom setting, your kids could take their stones home with them, either 16 tiny ones or one great big one. And this is a teaching tool at the same time. There's QR codes hidden in here that will help you teach the lesson about the brother of Jared, and then a recipe to help you make the stones. All kinds of goodness in that object lesson. Okay, third one. This one involves a printable as well. This is to talk about what it means to have sealed books. There's this kind of mysterious part at the end of this week's study where you learn about this vision that the brother of Jared has being incredible, beyond what anybody has ever experienced before, but being sealed. And it's important to help your kids understand why. Why does the Lord seal books, and when is it going to come forth? So for this one, I created a little printable that looks like the sealed books. It actually slides over a pack of gum because gum comes sealed as well. And we're going to show a comparison. So for the gum you want just the standard extra size gum. That's what I sized the printable to. So if you print at 100%, it should fit perfectly around a standard pack of 15 pieces of extra gum. And it's built with all kinds of teaching tools to help your kids understand what these sealed portion of the plates are all about. So that's the basics of the supplies you need. Now let's get into the details. Our goal as teachers is to try and find ways for our kids or our fellow classmates to connect with these stories. And one of my favorite parts of this week's story that you can connect with is being tight like a dish. When the Savior spoke to the brother of Jared about how to build the barge, he used that phrase over and over and over again. It needs to be tight like a dish. And I find myself wondering why. There's a great talk from S. Michael Wilcox from years ago where he talked about how this must have been such a comfort to hear this over and over and over again, especially when they were on this storm-tossed sea. Can't you hear the brother of Jared talking to his frightened kids when there is a big storm and they're being submerged in the water to say, don't worry, we were built tight like a dish. In fact, maybe one of the reasons it's repeated so frequently in that verse is because the Lord wants it to ring out in our ears when we are afraid. So I think there's something really cool about understanding that that's how you were built. That's how your kids were built. They were built to be tight like a dish. And something about making it and seeing how that benefits these Jaredites, it's memorable. You guys, your kids will remember it forever, and it will help them believe that they have those same protections. To make it is a little bit complicated, but not hard. So I walk you through it step by step in the notes. Basically, you're going to take any kind of container. Like I mentioned, you want one that has a flat bottom, because what normally would look like this, where this is the lid, you're going to flip it over, and that's going to become the floor of your barge. And on the floor, you're going to create a hole. So remember, the Lord told the brother of Jared that in order for this barge to survive the ocean voyage, they needed a hole in the top and in the bottom. So we're going to create those. The easiest way I found, if you go at this hard plastic with a pair of scissors, it likely will crack. So the best way I found is to pull out the blowtorch. I know many of you don't have the culinary blowtorch that my kids bought me. If you don't have one, you could use a lighter. You also could use a very small drill bit, just to kind of drill a hole first. Instead of it cracking, you'll just get a little hole and then you can expand it. But something about having that plastic heated made a remarkable difference. So if you have a lighter that you can hold under the lid and melt a little hole, you just need a hole that's about the size of a little smaller than a quarter. It doesn't have to be a huge hole, because you're going to actually hot glue this condiment cup onto it. You want that on the inside of the barge. So you're going to glue this little cup that has a similar sized hole onto the barge. The reason you're going to do this is you're going to show your kids how this actually creates an access point to the ocean. When the barge is sealed on the top, they can actually use this to fish. They could use it to get rid of the waste they have. What I loved is when you watch the Book of Mormon story, the one that just came out a few weeks ago, they actually show this happening. They show people, there's kind of looks like a barrel of sorts that they're dumping things into. And I think that's kind of what you're demonstrating with this. Once you build your barge, you're going to do the same thing. I would melt another hole in the top. These don't have to be pretty holes, you guys. These are just functional holes. And then you're going to create your Jaredites. So on the printable, in addition to the instructions for how to make the barge, you're also going to find these little people. I created them in a kind of a cool way so that you can just fold this piece of paper into a circle and create these people. For us, we cut them in half so that we had 2 sets of 4, and you just want to kind of tape those into your container. They don't need to look pretty. They don't need to be arranged well. You're just trying to show how there's paper inside. So that way, when you submerge it and pull it out again, you can show your kids, look, the people are still dry. That the submerging trick worked. So that's when you're going to put it to the test. So this is where you need a bigger container of water. For us, we used a large clear salad bowl so the kids could see it going down. You could also use like a plastic tub, or even do this if you're at home, like in the bathtub or in the sink, so that your kids have an option to see how this barge can be submerged. And then I would just walk through the 3 things that the people experience, right? They experience floating on the top of the water, where they can open that piece of tape off the top and let the sun come in and the air come in when the storms are calm, and they can just float along the top. Then you want to show them how it looks when they're in a storm, when they're submerged. How would it work for them that you can flip that container over and over again? And if both of that top and bottom hole are sealed, you've got some time where you can be completely watertight. And then I would show them the third option, which is how they could use that hole in the bottom to fish. When things are calm and they're on the water, you would think when you push that container down into the water, if that hole at the bottom isn't sealed, you would think the water would just pour in. But because the top is sealed, you get this air pressure inside and the water stays. It's kind of like, do you remember when we did that lesson with the cupcakes shoved into the cups and the Twinkies shoved into the cups, and you submerge them in water? It's that same sort of principle. The air pressure actually keeps the barge dry. What I love about this is I think this is probably what the barge was like most of the time, where they may have gone under the waves, or they may have been in a rocky, stormy sea. They would have had an opportunity to still have access to the water, where they could fish, where they could, find other options. They could come up with other solutions to help them stay alive in this barge for a season. And then, like the Lord promised, he brings them to the top of the water so they can open up that portal on the top, and they have a chance to have air and light and all the good things. But hopefully just the chance of actually creating a barge. Like, whether you do this in your family and you make several of them, or maybe you make it before class and you bring it to class and let your kids make the little paper people and experience what it's like to submerge them. Hopefully when you crack open that boat and you show that those people are still dry, despite even when that bottom piece was open, they can survive this storm. Then take a minute to testify to your kids about how they were built tight like a dish. They were brought here to do a great work, and the Lord will protect them. They were made to withstand storms. The Lord is giving them uncommon solutions that are different than the world's in order to stay intact in this difficult journey, but hopefully get them through. I think that's what we heard from Elder Wilcox or Brother Wilcox at conference. That same message of you're different on purpose and you can make it. You were built tight like a dish. One of my most common prayers is, Lord, please touch these stones. Because so many times in my life, I've done the very best I can, and I know it's not enough, and I know I could have done more if I had more time or more energy or more talent. And I basically say to the Lord, this is the best I can do. Will you please touch these stones? Will you illuminate my best effort to make it enough? And I think that's a really critical thing to teach our teenagers and our kids, that they don't have to be perfect. They simply have to turn to the right source and ask Him to illuminate what they created. I love that the brother of Jared's story is a story where the Lord invites him to create. Come up with what you can with your talents and your abilities, and let me touch it and see what light I can bring. It's a beautiful thing. So to actually make them as a family helps you see that process. Because sometimes we kind of rush through that verse where he moltens these clear stones. I don't know how long that took, you guys. It probably took time and effort and expertise. Because I imagine he's not just going to bring any old rock to the Lord. He knows he's asking something sacred and holy, and so he does the very best he can. So I feel like that's what you get out of this object lesson. You get a chance to molten things and to see that it's a precise work. It's something that takes time and effort, and as you get better at it, you can create something more beautiful and more delicious at the same time. It's a really simple recipe. It's in the notes. It's on the printable as well. It's just simply granulated sugar and corn syrup, and then also a flavoring if you want. We made several different flavors this year. We made strawberry, watermelon, vanilla, and lemon, because I made these little batches and flavored them differently. I would tell you though that any flavoring you add changes the color just slightly. If you can find a clear flavoring like the lemon or the kind of vanilla that's clear for baking, those will help you keep a nice clear stone. You also can do it without any flavoring whatsoever, and it'll just taste sweet, and then you get kind of a nice clear stone to work with. But the method is really easy. In fact, I'm giving you a microwave method on purpose, hoping that if you're in a seminary class or teaching in Sunday school, you could maybe actually make this at the church because you're not using the stove, you're not cooking anything. Basically, the method is really simple. You just combine the corn syrup and the sugar as much as you can in the container, and then you're going to put it in the microwave for a couple minutes. You're trying to get it to the hard crack stage, which is about 300 degrees. For me, I have one of those laser thermometer guns because we have it for a pizza oven. If you've got one of those or have a friend who has one of those, that makes everything much easier because you're going to put it in the microwave for a couple minutes. It'll start to bubble up and you want to take the temperature. If you don't have a candy thermometer or one of those thermometers, you also could just take a little bit out with a spoon and put it in water. And if it hardens immediately in cold water, then you know that it's ready to go. But about 300 degrees is what you're aiming for. And then you want to decide what kind of stones you're going to make. So in the past, we created these kind of stones. They're still my favorite. They look like rocks. They look a lot like what you see in the movie, like the series that the church put out. So this is, to make these, you just want to lay out like a piece of wax paper or a silicone sheet like you would put at the bottom of a cookie sheet. And you're going to pour out that 300 degree syrupy stuff onto it, almost like a big cookie. Just make big rounds, probably like 4 inches across, and let those cool for about a minute. You don't want to touch them when they're that hot because you can burn your hands. But once they get cool enough that you can sort of touch them, this is when you want to scrape them up. For me, I use one of those pie or like pastry scrapers to kind of scrape them into a pile, and then I could sort of handle them. And you just want to form them in your hand. They're still going to be kind of hot, so I wouldn't have little kids do it this way, but if you have teenagers that you're working with or you just want to demonstrate, you can kind of show them how it works. And you form a little ball and then you just set it right back on the parchment paper and let it cool until it turns into this awesome little stone. The other method that we tried this year that we've never done before is to use a mold. So if you don't want to have to handle it with your hands or you're working with little kids, you want to find these. These are to make 16 tiny little stones. So if you have one of these, you want to sterilize it, obviously, and then you're going to actually just pour the candy concoction into these little wells. I used this one and one that I found on Amazon that was a little bit bigger, and that created these cool round, like perfectly round stones. So it's kind of up to you what you want to do. My kids, especially Violet and Evie, thought it was really awesome to pop these out. What was fun about this little toy is that as soon as the candy hardens, you can pop them out and they kind of shoot across. So either method, you want to make some stones. Then you're going to use the printable. So I created this box, essentially like an exploding box. So when you take the lid off, this opens wide. And this will give you a place that you can store your stones. Maybe if you give them one big stone or 16 tiny ones, and it has all the verses on it. It also, on the inside of the lid, has teaching tools built into it. So that if you're a teenager and you're teaching your class or your quorum, you could use these QR codes to watch the video, to learn President Eyring's thoughts on these verses, and then testify about what you've experienced. That would take your whole lesson time. So hopefully these tools will give you a chance for your kids or your classmates to take something home with them and also have a chance to teach it in the process. But I'm telling you guys, of all the lessons I've done, there's something about this one that has power. Because as soon as you go into a dark space and you put that stone on top of the flashlight and it illuminates, it's memorable. It will change the way your kids read the Brother of Jared story forever. I know that because it's changed how my kids read it. And it's been 4 years since we did this object lesson and they still remember it. So hopefully it does that for your group as well. As great as the story of touching the stones is, what happens after the touching of the stones is probably more important, because this is when the Brother of Jared actually comes to see the body of the Savior. He's in his spirit body, but it's the body that he will have in his mortal life. Like he has the appearance of how he will look when he actually lives on the earth. And that's revolutionary in Scripture. And then he also has this great vision after, where now that he's seen the Lord, the veil is thin and he has a certainty of God. And so now the Lord can't hold him back anymore, and he shows him all things. He shows him all people and all things. And this grand vision that we don't have an open record of. And that's what actually is the sealed portion of the plates. So remember back at the beginning when we were talking about the different kinds of plates and how Moroni was compiling a bunch and Mormon was compiling a bunch. What Moroni does in this week's study is he actually takes that visionary experience of the Brother of Jared and he writes it down, but it's encrypted in a way. It's not available to us to read, and then it's sealed. And the promise is that at some point it will come forth. I just think it's one of those interesting things that we don't really talk about a lot, but your kids probably have questions about, especially if they're teenagers. So I wanted to create this object lesson to open up conversation and to give you a teaching tool to talk about what the sealed plates are. So basically, I would compare the sealed plates to this sealed pack of gum. That's why I made the printable go around this pack of gum. Also because I just thought they were gold plates shaped and it worked out perfectly. So essentially, you're going to talk about, why is this gum sealed? And your kids will probably have a lot of different ideas or answers. Like, it keeps freshness. It makes it so it's not contaminated by the world around it. Nothing can get inside the gum. Maybe the flavors, if you had a pack of watermelon gum next to a pack of mint gum, if they didn't have that seal, the flavors might mix and might not be a great combination. And talk about the purity of the gum when it stays sealed. And then I would compare that to the plates, that the Lord intends for the goodness that is in those sealed plates to come forth. In fact, he promises it will come forth. But we need to be ready for it first. There are some things that we have to do as a people to appreciate the plates that are already in our hands. The Book of Mormon that we already have before us. When we choose to use it and to consume it and to be converted by it, that opens up opportunities for added light and added knowledge. That's when those plates have an opportunity to be unsealed and to be available to us. So I'm giving you some tools. You're going to use the analogy of the gum, and then you're going to slide the printable on top of it and talk to your kids about the sealed portion of the plates, what we know and what we don't know. And the tools for that are on the back. So I guide you through it in the notes, but basically I would just kind of chat about what they know so far. If you follow this QR code, it takes you to a really good article about what we actually know so far about the golden plates in general. And then there's a section all about the sealed plates. And then I would have them get into their scriptures, because the best place for them to understand the sealed portion of the plates is from Moroni himself. So that's where they go into the verses. So on the back of the printable, I've given you all these questions that your kids will need to open up their scriptures and study in order to answer. They're not super hard questions. It's like, who wrote the plates and when are they going to come forth and what are the contents? Those kind of questions they can find the answers to if they seek the existing Book of Mormon. And I'm hoping to tie all that together, to talk to my kids about how conversion happens for us when we get into the plates that are already open. The Book of Mormon that is in our hands will soften our hearts and help us come unto Christ. That way, at some point, when these plates are unsealed, there's no band around them. There's no, like you can go in the notes and in the QR code and see that there's a lot of urban legends about what these plates look like. When they're actually opened and available to us, they're not going to create testimony. What they'll do is confirm the testimony that we already built by studying the Book of Mormon we have now. That's what I think the Lord was trying to teach us. He wants to give us added light and knowledge. He's keeping things fresh and sealed until we're absolutely ready for it. And when that day comes, there will be a brightness, right? There will be added light and added knowledge in the world that will change how we see things. Moroni described it as the greatest vision of all time. I think it's worth our time to get into the Book of Mormon so that we have a chance to study what's going to come next. I don't know if that's going to come soon or if it'll come in the millennium, but at some point, those plates will be unsealed and we'll be able to understand and know what the brother of Jared knew. And I think it'll be worth the wait. See, I told you this is going to be a memorable week of study. This is a good one. You're going to love it, you guys. Whether you do all these object lessons or just one or something entirely different, find a creative way to get into these verses. I promise it's rewarding. I'm seeing the rewards in my own family. I know you will too. If you need extra help with the study, remember, you're welcome to open up the notes. If you're a subscriber to the course, you have access to all the notes and all the printables as part of your subscription. So you can find those listed under the video on my site, gather.mecmom.com. If you're not a subscriber and that doesn't fit for you, you're more than welcome to get the object lesson supplies over in my Etsy shop. That's where I offer them a la carte. So if you're not consistently teaching, or maybe you just want a certain printable to do with your family or with your class, go to the Etsy shop and you can find all the Book of Mormon printables over there. They always have an intro page of all the instructions, some photos so that you can know how to put things together, and all the tools so that within a few minutes or maybe an hour, you can put this together for your family or your class and have a really powerful week of study. I promise you guys, this is a week that is worth your time. So dive in. If you need extra help, remember you can come find me on the live. So that happens Monday morning at 10 a.m. Go to gather.mecmom.com and you can RSVP for Monday's live. It happens at Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, and it goes for about an hour. But if you can't catch it live, you're more than welcome to watch it after the fact. It's posted usually within 10 minutes of the live ending, and it's available to anybody who wants more of a chapter-by-chapter approach of these sections. So, all right, you guys, enjoy your study, and I'll see you on Monday.